In this video, we're going to take a look at filters that we can use in our Ruby on Rails controllers. Filters are code that will get wrapped around our controller processes. In other words, when we call particular methods inside of our controllers, these filters will get called depending on the type of filter. And there's actually three kinds. We have, as shown here, a before filter. We also have an after filter. And then we have an around filter. Now, each of these filters, how they actually work is that they will be called depending on the type of filter that they are. So it's actually pretty close to how English works here. The before filter will get called before any of these actions are ran. This particular method right here will get called before any of these run. Now you might be asking, well, where does this one exist? Well, you have a couple options. It has to be accessible by this class, so it could be in a superclass, or it could be in something like your application.rb, which is filters can get put in here that apply to your whole application. In this case, that's what we've done here, is that we've put this authorize method inside of our application so that all of our controllers, not just the tech controller, can access that and make sure that all of our methods will be authorized before they get started. Now you see that on this before filter I have an exception, and that's login. So when the login method is called down here, it will not run that filter. It'll allow that to run without that filter method being called. If we look at what this filter method does, it's called authorize. So unless this is defined, unless we have an ID assigned, so it's checking to see if there's a tech ID set in session, so it's looking for this particular key. If this is not set, it's going to put a notice in our flash saying please log in, and it's going to redirect to our login on our controller, so it'll go to login. Essentially, we get, if someone's not logged in, they will not be allowed to run any of these methods down here with the exception of the login method. Now, how this actually works is that if the before filter comes back with a false, if this evaluates with a false, it will not run whatever action was called. So you can have that fallback too if your action doesn't, inside of your filter method, doesn't do something explicit with where that view gets directed to. Now the after filter is a filter. It's the same mechanism. It gets called after the particular method is called in your application. This is typically used if you want to add things into your header, information into your web HTTP header, you can add stuff. Or if you wanted to compress files, you could compress them with an after filter where once the view gets generated, then you could call a compress method and compress all that stuff and send it through. There's probably not as many applications for the after filter, but it probably has a place somewhere. And then finally we have the around filter, which is perhaps something you want to do with some timing or that type of thing where it's important to know how long a particular action has been going on or taking on your particular machine. And an around filter is a little bit different in that you define a class, and then inside that class you have two methods called before and after. And with those, when that method's called, it'll call the before method out of that class and then the after method in that class. And they wrap appropriately too, so that when you have two around filters, they'll probably nest. So if you have an around filter A and around filter B and they're called in that order, the before A will get called and then the before B method will get called, and then as your method gets done completing in your controller class, your B after filter will get called, and then your A after filter will get called. So it's smart that way.